everyone, welcome to our YouTube channel. I'm Dr. Ashwati. Students, in this lecture, I'm going to introduce you people to the topic called Waves of Democratization. We know that democracy is all about the government which is created through the consent or consensus, we can say, the consent by the people. It is a government created by the people. So the idea of democratic peace and various other ideas that started developing in the what we call enlightened period itself. Then we have the Immanuel Kant and many other thinkers. But yes, there are waves of democratization. One of the prominent theorists associated with this, the waves of democratization is Samuel P. Huntington. He spoke about 3 waves, but yes, we have 4 waves basically. So we will check out today. So waves of democratization, like what are the stages in which the democratization took place, how it actually emerged, what were the supporting events, all these things we will be discussing today. So we will first start with the first wave of democratization. So the first wave of democratization, as you can see, that it happened between 1828 and 1926. So these are the lines by Samuel P. Huntington, that according to him, it emerged from the earliest, we can say that before the mid-19th century itself, or we can say that before the mid-19th century it started happening, like there was a first wave of democratization. One of the important feature of the democratization in this period was there was no political parties were not given much significance. And if you remember, if you have read J.S. Mill also, he is one of the important theorists associated with the representative form of government. He spoke about the liberty of the 3 types of liberty. On liberty, he has written freedom of action, then freedom of thought and expression, freedom of association. All these things were the various other thinkers also came up with the idea that you have to promote democracy, because it is not just for important at the most what we say functional level, but it is going to give a kind of an idea that the people can also, when people actually participate, it is going to be beneficial for the development of a strong civil society, for a strong nation itself. All these ideas were being made part of that time. In the first wave of democratization, the franchise rights were not open to each and every other person. It had certain limitations were there, but yes, we can say that this was the first stage when there was a push for democracy as the viable option which can reduce conflicts, and it is definitely going to promote peace. This was the basic we can say that the catchy idea. So, in which countries we have seen the first wave of democratization happening? We have examples here: Argentina, Australia, Britain, Canada, France, Germany, Netherlands, then New Zealand, Scandinavian countries, and the United States of America. These were the countries associated with that of the first wave of democratization. But yes, obviously we have seen that in economy also we see that there is a stage of Rostow's theory also that we must have read, that okay, then there is first you have a condition, like a kind of a traditional situation, then there is a stage where you can take that leads to the takeoff, then the takeoff happens, then it achieves the maturity, right? But yes, obviously Rostow was talking about only the growth, right, going up. But yes, when there is it has reached the peak, there was a reduction here in the democratization because of the, let's say that the very nature of the politics of the 20th century, all these 3 factors: the rise of fascism, then after Nazism, fascism in Italy, Nazism in Germany under Adolf Hitler, then Benito Mussolini's fascism, all these things. Then after the rise of communism and the formation of the Soviet Union, then after military dictatorship in various parts of the world, which was taking we can say that a simultaneous step was taking at that time. So all these things actually came as a setback to the first wave of democratization. Obviously, this was also the period when the First World War already has taken place. Then the Treaty of Versailles happened. Then there were the victors of the war, they enjoyed that moment, but those who got defeated, they started thinking about that how to take revenge with the victors. All these things were happening at the international stage. So it obviously, these events put a kind of a setback to the first wave of democratization. Second wave of democratization was the one where there was a growing, there was an inclination to the idea that political parties are necessary. Like in an electoral setup, like to have a free and fair election, to have an open competition, you need political parties. So in the first wave, parties were seen as a source of faction, but in the second wave, they were seen as a kind of a necessary element in the promotion of democracy. Political parties or having a multi-party system was considered as a very viable option as a promoter of democracy in the world. So new democracies emerged in the Second World War. We can say that the intervening period of the Second World War to that of the end of the Second World War. So from 1943 till 1960s, we can say that from the 40s to 60s, we have witnessed the second wave of democratization. So we have seen the emergence of some of the strong political parties in various states or various countries in the world, like in India, the Indian National Congress, then after the Christian Democrats in Italy, LDP in Japan, and Labour Party in Israel. So these parties actually made a kind of a strong foundation for the democracy. So we can say that the second wave of democratization is more inclined towards the party politics, or the significance of having parties, how these parties are going to establish a strong democracy. Then we have the Duverger and various Sartori's, the classification of party systems, and all these things are there. Moving to our next, third wave of democratization is associated with the end of right-wing dictatorships in various countries like Greece, Portugal, and Spain. So this was also the period when there was a kind of a decline of, let's say, that military dictatorships in countries like Latin America. Then, as we know, that this was also the time when the Soviet Union was collapsed. It led to the formation of many states in the Central Asia as well as in the Eastern Europe. So obviously the countries which actually got separated from the USSR after its collapse, automatically most of these countries had only one option, that was you have to follow the democratic path. But ultimately the problems were the many of these countries, although they created democratic setups, but they were just only in the procedure terms, not in the substantive terms. Yeah, so this is the period, we can say that the third wave of democratization happened in the 1980s and 90s. That is the period when the third wave of democratization happened. So Samuel Huntington has spoken about three waves of democratization. Now there is a Larry Diamond has spoken about the fourth wave of democratization that we are witnessing in the 21st century. Many of the, as you remember, that I have discussed in one of my earliest lecture about the color revolutions. So color revolution were pro-democratic revolutions, many countries in the let's say that the post-Soviet states, or in the Middle East, I mean to say the West Asian countries, the Arab states of West Asia, as well as in the North Africa, they started protests to get rid of the authoritarian regime and to be replaced by a good democratic setup. Although in some states it turned out to be a kind of a success story, but in most cases it did not turn out to be a success story. But later on, these states actually plunged into more severe crisis. So we have the Arab Spring is there, Hong Kong protest, the umbrella movement in Hong Kong. Then after we have the Gota Go Home protest in Sri Lanka that happened last year itself. In 2022, we have seen that how actually people led a very strong protest in Sri Lanka, and which led the Gotabaya Rajapaksa to leave the country in itself. So we have seen so many protests across the world. It is not just Velvet Revolution. You have the the what you call it as the Rose Revolution, Cedar Revolution, various types of revolutions also took place. These revolutions did not speak about changing the state structure or anything or capturing the state power. It only legitimately demanded for the end to the authoritarian regime to be replaced by a democratic setup. So this is all about the fourth wave. So Larry Diamond has also written an article about the fourth wave as well. If you people are interested, you can just type his name, Larry Diamond, and fourth wave, then you will be getting ample of articles also. So that's all in this lecture, students. Hope you enjoyed the lecture. Make notes appropriately. So see you students in another lecture. Bye.